Hello, everyone. This is Jesse. We're back here with the part three, or third part, I would say, of the construction of the code, or the actual written part of the code in specifics to Selenium for our series on Selenium. Um, Towards the end of the last video we were talking about the HTML tags and different identifiers used, and how the code is constructed, and how it reflects how it kind of correlates and reflects with the HTML tags and things like that. Today I wanted to talk a little bit deeper about the different kinds of identifiers and the different kind of scenarios that could come up when those identifiers are being used. Let's quickly go into what we've got over here. Alright, so in the last video we were talking about, links and things like that. This is an href, signifies that this is a link, like we said last time. Let's log out really quickly, go to the login screen, and then we can look deeper at this text box we were looking at last time, and the kinds of different things we had going on here. So we talked about this in the last video, but I just kind of want to go over it again. So we have the name and ID here, and while they are similar in nature, IDs are generally unique, while names are sometimes not. Names are also usually supposed to be unique, but I've run into certain instances where they are not unique. So, in the case where you have a name that's unique to that specific element on the page, that's the first and foremost thing that you want to use. I mean, different places have prioritized different orders of things that you want to use to grab elements with Selenium. I've seen in some places they say use the ID first, then the name. If you can't use the ID, then use the name. Some places it's use the name first. If the name's not working out, then use the ID. So it's just kind of a preference type thing. But either way, those are usually your two go-tos: name and ID. CSS selector, XPath. So we can talk about XPath real quick. XPath is a bit more complex than the others. And honestly, when you're really having trouble with identifying an element, for some reason the element's not found, it's not finding the element, the XPath is usually what you want to go to. So you can go right here, say copy XPath, and it's going to copy it. Now, in Visual Studio, it's going to insert quotation marks where they're not supposed to be. So depending on the application, you kind of have to find your own way around that. Based on the application, there's different types of syntax to putting. There's many different ways to get the XPath for an element, because the XPath is usually the very unique address for specifically where that element appears on the page. So if nothing else is working, XPath is usually what you want to go to. We can look in the code right here. Say I were to write a statement that says something along the lines of. Now I'm just gonna edit this test just for the sake of showing you guys, but generally would just be writing in a new test, not writing in an old test. I want to make sure we're using a new test and things like that. So say I'm driver dot find element, right? You guys can see the drop down commands popping up here, and then since the find element's a method, you got to do the parentheses. We have by. Now, so here are all the different things that we could technically use to identify an element, right? So we have by class name, which uses the CSS. You guys can see all the different ways, the descriptions on how the elements are grabbed. So it's class name gets a mechanism to find elements by their CSS class. CSS selector gets a mechanism to find elements by their cascading style sheet CSS selector, right? Equals determines whether the specified object instances are considered equal. Note, tab twice to insert the equal snippet. This is a Boolean statement. If you don't understand what Boolean is relates to yes or no type functions, and not functions with various different kinds of inputs. So it's just true or false. That's what a Boolean is. But equals is not really something we're going to be using with Selenium in particular. It's kind of I mean, you can kind of put equals everywhere, that's why it's here, but in this specific scenario, it's not going to pop up. ID gets a mechanism to find the element by their ID. Link text gets a mechanism by the link text, the name, etc. So on and so forth, right? Sorry, I had that something pop up on my screen, but as I was saying, it's just reference equals, again, just like equals is kind of useless in this scenario. We're not really going to be using it. It's that boolean, again, you can see by the bool, B-O-O-L. But link text, name, partial link text, tag name, and XPath. So you can combine, actually, some things to get like very specifics about an element, which is where the tag name kind of comes into aspect. It's just something to think about. But I think that's it for the first part of, I guess, this video. What I want to talk about is getting deeper into the different kinds of identifiers and mechanisms used to grab elements from the web pages. We also have, I want to go deeper into actually exactly how this kind of happens and works, right? So let's look at this snippet of code that we have right here. We're just going to focus on this part right here. The different commands that we can kind of do after you found an element, right? So the first part right here basically tells us to find the element. We're going to use the name of this statement, admin username, admin underscore username. This grabs the text box with the admin username name for in the HTML for the page. This one grabs the admin password text box, and this one grabs the LNSBMT, that's the submit button, right? And the code that we've written here, here to interact with that is what we got right here. So this send keys is a command that goes after you found an element that essentially tells the code, or tells the driver to go and get the username. I mean, to type whatever you put in between the parentheses into that text box. Now, in this case, you can see it says username right here, and that's just because you can see it says local variable string username, which means I've assigned a username, see variable username, and it's equal to something in the configuration file. But essentially, I could put the quotation marks and put anything in here, and when the test is running, it would type whatever I put in here into the username text box. In this case, it will type whatever I put in here in the username, the password text box. Right here, we have the submit button. So after we found it, we just simply click, and since click is a method, it's a method of the iWeb element class. That it clicks. It's pretty straightforward. There's not much else to go about it. But like we talked about in the last video, of course, you have the parentheses and then the semicolon at the end statement. The parentheses are actually here as well. It's just here since it has an input value. As an input value, you put things between the parentheses, but it also ends with the semicolon, like I said before. So let's take a look really quickly at the different kinds of commands we can do after an element has been found. So let's, for hypothetical purposes, just copy this and paste it. We're gonna paste it right here, right? Okay, it's kind of off center, but I'm gonna delete it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But say we found it now, and we want to. Here we go. So these are different things we can kind of do. We can get the CSS value. It says finds the first. Oh no, hold on. Give me a second. Okay. Right, gets the hash code, things like that. So you guys can go through all this on your own. Send keys, finds the size, hit submit, different things like that. If it's a form, can submit it. Finds a tag name, finds a text, or returns a text value, converts it to a string. Just all these different things we can do. Clear the text box, click. So that's basically it for this video. Just want to go over that, the different functions we can do. In the next video, we'll kind of try to do a breakdown of how a test is actually constructed, start from scratch from the beginning, and kind of go through the entire process. I feel like that's it for today. We're kind of nearing the end of this beginner series on Selenium. We'll probably do a more advanced series later. But this is Jesse. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.